Good morning, Jen here. This morning, a new poll was released for the 2020 race called the Morning Consult Poll, and that is in association with Politico. So there are some interesting results that actually won't surprise you at all. These results still have Biden at the top, of course, even after he was accused of inappropriate touching by Lucy Flores, and then by, I believe it's now 7 or 8 women in total. And they're actually women that I've reached out to that I believe were inappropriately touched as well. So, despite all that, the polling from this morning consult poll shows that people still like Biden, that his favorability hasn't dropped all that much, that he's still in the lead over Bernie. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. We'll go into the methodology and how they have done this polling and all of that, and you can come to your own conclusions. So let's go ahead and look at their summary page. After their summary page, I'm going to take you through the actual data, which is a different page, because I think it's just most helpful to have as much information as possible, because most people will just be looking at the headlines where it says Biden in the lead over Bernie and things like that. So here we have the state of the Democratic Party. So the way that they do this is on a daily basis, Morning Consult surveys over 5,000 registered voters across the United States on the 2020 presidential election. They update this page every Tuesday, so that's today. It's been updated April 9th, which is today, and it was released this morning. The figures are broken out among Democratic primary voters nationwide and in early primary states, which includes just voters who live in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or Nevada. The latest results are based on 13,644 interviews with registered voters collected from April 1st through 7th, 2019. And you might think it's boring that I take you through the methodology and all of the stuff behind the scenes, but again, it's so important to actually understand the poll instead of just grabbing at the headlines. So here we have former Vice President Joe Biden coming in at 32% and Bernie Sanders coming in at 23%. Following them are Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, Elizabeth Warren, Mayor Pete, Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, Amy Klobuchar, and then the others aren't polling high enough to show up on this, but you can click to see more candidates, which of course includes Tulsi Gabbard, Hickenlooper, Andrew Yang, and all the others. And of course, we've had another announcement as of now that there is someone else entering the race, and that's Eric Swalwell. So I doubt Eric Swalwell will do very well, but good for him for throwing his hat in the ring. So here we have early primary state voters, which, as described, live in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or Nevada. So again, Joe Biden is showing up at 38%, whereas among Democratic Party primary voters in general, he was at 32%. Bernie Sanders at 24% among early primary state voters. And then interestingly, Elizabeth Warren gets ahead of Kamala Harris here. So you can see Elizabeth Warren's down in spot number 5 across the board, but when you look at early primary state voters, she comes in at number 3, which Elizabeth Warren has really been coming out strong policy-wise lately. So that will be interesting to follow her race and see what's going on. We know that Kamala Harris relies on her mega donors and all that, and so she's very much establishment. Elizabeth Warren is more of the Bernie Sanders camp. Cory Booker is more of the Kamala Harris camp. Who knows what camp Mayor Pete is in? All we know is he's done and said some terrible things in the past, and he still seems to be a media darling. So we'll see what that ends up being. Here is the trend over time. So we have here Bernie Sanders, who is the dark blue. He has gone up and is slightly going down now. And we have Biden, who has a similar trend, although he's gone up more recently and is now going slightly down. But despite his problems with women coming forward about inappropriate touching, he is still in the lead, according to this Morning Consult poll. So again, it goes into how they collect over 5,000 registered voters across the United States on a daily basis. And here we have more in depth. Our Democratic primary results are reported using 12,940 interviews with registered voters who indicate they may vote in the Democratic primary or caucus in their state. For those who say don't know or no opinion, they are asked to pick a candidate they are leaning towards. Results are reported among first choice and those who lean towards a candidate. The interviews were collected from April 1st through 7th, 2019, and have a margin of error of plus or minus 1%. The early primary state demographic was based on surveys with 525 voters. And see, this is why it's important to get into the weeds and really look at where these numbers are coming from, because 525 voters across Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or Nevada is not a lot. That is a very bad sample size, in my opinion. And I think they should break it down even further. So voters in New Hampshire, voters in South Carolina, voters in Nevada. And other polls do that, but this Morning Consult poll has not. So here is the broken down political intelligence Morning Consult poll, where it goes more deeply into the information. And I highly recommend that you sign up to receive this. So you can do that over here on the Morning Consult's website, and then you can break it down. But you'd rather just have me break it down for you, I understand. So the key takeaways here are that Joe Biden's first place standing holds amid scrutiny over his conduct with women. His support among all Democratic primary voters dropped by 1 point and increased by 1 point among early primary state voters, both negligible shifts within the margin of error. Let's talk about that for a minute. So we have Joe Biden, who's been accused of all these women of inappropriate touching. We have all of these photos and videos of him touching women inappropriately, touching children inappropriately. And the ones where he's touching children inappropriately, sniffing their hair, kissing them, feeling them, putting his hands, close to their chest, they're really disturbing. They really turn the stomach. And I don't understand why Biden doesn't understand that it's wrong. I also don't understand why his polling hasn't dropped. What is wrong with people that they dismiss this as absolutely nothing? I want to know exactly the breakdown and the percentages of the ages are in this poll, which we do not get. They say they account for different different ages to represent the United States, but I don't believe them. And not until we hear back from them, and I'm going to reach out to them right after this video on the age breakdown, can we fully trust this? Because as we know, older voters are more likely to vote for Biden. And they say that they take these polls online, so that's at least better than taking them on landlines, but still, why is Biden so far in the lead? Why hasn't he dropped? Have people not been paying attention to the news? It's not like women coming forward is a way to, take him down. Of course, it's politically motivated when women come forward right when he may announce his entry into the race. But I think that's okay, because we need to know absolutely everything we can about a candidate before we actually vote them into office. We don't want this stuff coming out when he's president or if he becomes president. We want to know this stuff now. So those women have come forward. And still, it seems people don't care. Is it because of polling those older voters? And I don't mean to be ageist. That's not what I mean at all. It just so happens that older voters like Biden more and younger voters like Bernie Sanders more. So let's go back. The second takeaway here is Biden's favorability has softened in recent weeks. So he still holds first place. He has only dropped by 1 point of those who would vote for him, but his favorability rating has softened. So that's the percentage of Democratic primary voters with a favorable opinion of him, and that's dropped 10 points. So that tells us that at least some people are paying attention to the fact that he's been an inappropriate toucher much of his political career, or all of his political career. And who knows what else will come out. But still, he's only dropped 10 points. People will still vote for him despite his favorability dropping. So I don't understand people. That's really what this poll is. Or at the very least, I don't understand without more information from Morning Consult. What are those ages? What's the breakdown? I really need to know. And I come from a background, I was a psychology major in college. And I was trained to look at studies and was trained to look at methodology, and this does not satisfy at all. And I don't know why more people don't talk about that. This doesn't satisfy any scientist's you know yearning to know what's behind this polling. So we also have key takeaway number 3 is that Buttigieg, his rise continues, and I have a strong feeling that's because of the media. He's up to 5% of the vote share among all Democratic primary voters, his 3rd straight week of growth. So there's something to the fact that of 3 key takeaways, Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden take up all 3. These are things that the pollsters have chosen to highlight. And I actually think pollsters shouldn't highlight anything. They should just release the data and have journalists sift through it and come away with their own takeaways. Lazy journalists will just grab these headlines and put them up and have that be the end of it. Oh, Pete Buttigieg is doing great. It's his 3rd straight week of growth. Hooray, Pete. Biden, oh, he's still in the lead. Great, that's all we need to report. Meanwhile, there's important data underneath this. There's stuff we need to know. There's stuff we do know, but that doesn't get reported, that's favorable towards Bernie Sanders and others. So Mayor Pete, his 3rd straight week of growth. It's also his 3rd straight week of nonstop media coverage. The media really, really wants him to rise. So from last week, Biden dropped 1 point, Bernie dropped 2 points, Kamala rose 1 point, Mayor Pete rose 2 points. So that's not that huge, Kirsten Gillibrand rose 1 point, but that's not in the the key takeaway information. There's the early primary states information, which we've already gone over. Here we have the favorability and name recognition. And so Bernie Sanders, if you want a Bernie Sanders headline, you could grab this. Bernie Sanders comes out 99% name ID. 32% of those people have a very favorable idea of him. 42% have a somewhat favorable idea of him. And then we have the heard of, no opinion, never heard of, somewhat unfavorable, and very unfavorable. And Bernie's ratings are great on that realm. So are Joe Biden's. He comes in at 98% name recognition. Of course, he was the vice president of the United States, so it's kind of questionable why certain people haven't heard of him. Unless it's not, no access to the internet, but this poll was taken on the internet, so I'm very confused by these people who don't know who Biden and Sanders are. But nonetheless, after that, we have Elizabeth Warren coming in at 88%, name ID, Kamala Harris, 78%, and then it goes down from there. And I bet you that the name recognition for Mayor Pete will go way, way, way up as the weeks come and as the media gives him more attention. They seem to have chosen Mayor Pete to give a boost to in the media, and Joe Biden. Those seem to be their 2 winners. I'm very surprised, actually, that they haven't given Kamala Harris more of a boost in the media. I thought she would be the next Hillary, the one the media wants to talk about all the time and give favorable press to. But for some reason, it seems to be Joe Biden. We'll see if he enters the race. I think he's going to wait until things die down from the accusations. They also did some GOP polling for support for Trump, and 58% strongly support Trump's nomination, which is not shocking, but is very disturbing. I really think that Trump has an extremely high chance of winning the presidency. GOP loves him. People don't read the news. People don't look into what's going on. For example, right now, Trump has just fired the head of Homeland Security and the head of his secret security. People don't pay attention to those things. They only pay attention to, yay, Trump, he's stopping the migrants from coming across the border. Never mind that he wants kids in cages, and Kirsten Nielsen's kids in cages weren't enough for him. He wanted more, so she got booted out. People who don't fall in line with him get booted out. And so people like Stephen Miller get to take over and decide on the kids in cages and the migrant situation and whether or not they're going to close the borders. So that's all I have to talk about this poll today. Again, I'm going to reach out to find out the age breakdown, because I think that is so extremely important when you're talking about these polls, is the age breakdown, because the age breakdown of voters for Bernie and Biden are very, very different, as I've already mentioned. All right, that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.